Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about recommendation letters. Before I go any further, I just want to tell you guys thank you so much for the support that I've been receiving. I'm enjoying chatting with you guys via email, via DM, via WhatsApp. Thank you so much for the support, and if you're not subscribed yet, go subscribe. I'm gonna give you a minute to subscribe. Okay. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. Alright, so let's just get right into today's video. Okay, so recommendation letters are part of the application that you will submit to colleges through the Common App. And recommendations are super important because, as I keep saying on this channel, colleges look at your application holistically. So if your grades are top notch, but the other parts of your application, like your essays, your recommendation letters, aren't top notch as well, you are lowering your chances of getting in or even getting a scholarship. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a few things. Number 1, general things to know about recommendations. 2, what makes a good recommendation? And this will give you a guide as to who to ask for it. 3, I'm going to share a recommendation with you guys that someone wrote for me. 4, how to ask for a recommendation. And 5, I'm going to share a free resource with you guys that you can use when requesting a recommendation. Alright, so first thing on the agenda, general things about recommendations. Firstly, most colleges will ask you to write about ask you to submit about 2 to 3 recommendations. 1 from a guidance counselor and then 1 or 2 from a teacher. Some colleges will also allow you to submit supplementary recommendations like from an employer. Most colleges will tell you how many recommendations to submit. And I'm gonna say this right now. Follow instructions. If they say submit 2, if they say submit 3, don't go overboard, okay? Remember that real people are reading your application, and if you don't follow instructions, that's very annoying. So just follow instructions, don't submit more material than is necessary. Secondly, you might want to ask teachers that are related to the discipline that you want to study. So for example, if you want to study engineering, you might want to ask your math or your physics teacher. And you want to also ask your most recent teacher, the one that's taught you in high-level courses. Thirdly, ask early. If you're applying to college for 2021, you should have asked already. If you haven't asked yet, you need to ask today. You need to ask early and give your teachers enough time to write your recommendations. In general, I would recommend asking for a recommendation at the very beginning of your final year in high school. Lastly, your guidance counselor is your best friend. At some schools, students and their counselors don't have a good relationship, but you need to ensure that your guidance counselor knows you. So make sure you go into his or her office, introduce yourself, be nice, don't be ingenuine, but basically, you want your counselor to be able to write a personal recommendation about you, and it ain't gonna be personal if they don't know you. Okay, so the second thing on the agenda, what makes a good recommendation? In one word, specificity. Specificity.
Why do you say it with so much oomph?
Okay, so second thing on the agenda, what makes a good recommendation? In one word, specificity. A good recommendation is specific. So how can you be specific in a recommendation? One way is by using rankings. So statements like, Hannah is the best student I had this year. Another way is by using examples. So instead of statements like Hannah is hardworking, something like Hannah never gets less than a 95% in my class. Despite her busy schedule as an athlete, she always keeps up with her work. And she tries to help others who are weak in math. For example, she formed a study group with her classmates to help them. Another way to be specific in a recommendation is by making it personal. By personal, I mean allowing your teacher or making your teacher refer to things that the student does outside of class or that you do outside of class. So for example, something like, Hannah also volunteers at a local preschool and organizes fun educational games for the kids there. Another thing to make the recommendation specific is by talking about the future prospect of the students at that institution. So saying something like if they'll be an asset or if they'll perform well there and why. Also, just the overall way of how the recommendation is crafted says a lot. So is it like a 2-line recommendation that uses boring language, or is it a 3 to 4 paragraph recommendation where the teacher sounds enthusiastic to talk about that student? All of these things make a good recommendation, and this should guide you as to who to ask for it. You want a teacher who can write about you using the things that I've said before. So in addition to asking teachers that have taught you recently in a high-level course and teachers that have taught you in a subject area related to what you want to study, you want to ask teachers that know you well. Very, very well. Okay, so now I'm going to share a recommendation that was written for me. P.S. You should not ask to see a recommendation before it's sent out or even ask to see it after it's sent out. However, this is an exception. I'm going to be sharing my employer recommendation with you guys, and my boss is super chill, so I was able to get a hold of it, and I was able to do that because I want to share it so that you guys can benefit. So this is an exception. You should not see your recommendations. So I decided to submit a supplementary recommendation, which is my employer recommendation, just because I knew it would add value to my application. Do not submit additional materials just because. That said, I'm going to go right into my employer recommendation.
First is the introduction, where my boss said how she knew me and talked about what I did at the company. After, she begins the second paragraph with a ranking, saying that I'm the top employee. Then she goes on to list some specific character traits about me backed by examples. For instance, she said that I'm goal-oriented and explained that I created goals for my department. Then towards the end of the second paragraph and in the last paragraph, it gets personal. She speaks about me being a friend and mentions some of my activities outside of work, like modeling and school. And then she closes by talking about my future prospects, saying that I will be a high performer at the institution.
So the next thing on the agenda is how to ask for your recommendation. I would suggest approaching your counselor or teacher in person well in advance of the due date and ask kindly. Make sure you also let them know the due date. If they agree, ask them if it would be okay for you to send a follow-up email, including things that they can highlight in the recommendation if they want. So stuff like achievements or personal stories. Then follow up with that email highlighting anything that you might want them to include in the recommendation, and make sure you include the due date in that email as well. And remember, you're asking for a recommendation. You're not entitled to it. And the last thing, I have attached an email template that you guys can use when asking your teachers for recommendations. Remember that a lot of things, the way you talk, how you address your teachers, largely depends on culture. So whereas I do think many of you will be able to just copy and paste the wording that I used, make sure that you tweak the wording to your culture and to your student-teacher relationship. Okay, so if you want that email template, all you have to do is subscribe, like, comment on this video, anything you want. You can comment anything, and fill out the Google form in the description box below so I can get your email and send it to you. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support. It means so much to me. Today's quote, well, it's not really a quote, but just a fact. Your reputation is one of your most valuable assets. Till next time, guys. Bye.